All right, let's stop in Frisk and the NYPD as we await the ruling of a federal trial here that could seriously change the way we look and see how this program is put in practice. City Council appears ready here to do that job themselves. Well, they're not even waiting for the ruling. The council, they will vote tonight on two bills. One, it would create the position of the Inspector General, basically policing the police. The other, it would make it easier for people who think that they have been victims of police bias to seek justice. Now, everyone sounded off on this of the key players, including the mayor. Mr. Bloomberg vehemently opposed both of the proposals.
What are you going to say at the next eulogy you have to give after these bills are passed, when the family is 100% convinced that had you not passed this bill, that their child would still be alive?
And the police unions agreed.
It's wrong to make a police officer acting in good faith, responding to a crime victim, to make him personally liable for doing nothing more than transmitting a description of a perpetrator.
Now, that concern and that contention that the bill's author here got this wrong is something that Councilman Jumaane Williams completely disagrees with.
You show me in the bill where it would prevent you from using descriptions, and I will withdraw the bill today.
And tonight, just hours before the votes, the councilman himself joins us, and our own Dominic Carter, he picks up the story from here. Dom?
Well, good evening, Richard. Councilman Williams finds himself front and center of this polarizing issue. He's one of the sponsors of the bill, and he joins us, as Richard said, live from his Lower Manhattan office. Now, Councilman, first of all, good evening, and it's clear that it appears a majority of the City Council supports an Inspector General for the NYPD. But do you have enough votes to get it passed tonight and enough votes to maintain an override once Mayor Bloomberg vetoes this?
Oh, good evening, Dominic. Thanks for having me on. We've taken these two bills one step at a time through its entirety. It was developed early, slowly. It was sent through the process of the City Council slowly. And the current bills in its current form happened also slowly. So we can make sure we get this right. We chose to use a discharge to get it to the floor after exhausting everything we can. So we haven't looked too far ahead except for each thing that comes before us. And right now, the thing that's before us is a vote. We have an overwhelming majority to pass both of these pieces of legislation. I'm excited about that. I'm not excited about the lies that have been told about the bills. And the bills that the mayor and the police unions generally talk about are not the bills that are going to be passed today by the City Council. We believe override, should it come, we will have enough to defeat override.
Well, critics argue, as you well know, Councilman, that this will shackle the police department and will cost the city millions in legal fees. Are they accurate?
No, this bill is narrowly tailored. We wrote this bill with a scalpel to only get at bias-based profiling. That's all it does. So it doesn't even actually prevent police officers' ability to stop someone with reasonable suspicion and frisk them with probable cause. All it does is you can't use bias-based profiling to do that. So there already exists a bill that says you can't use these protected categories as determinative factors. We use that same language. So all it says is that you just can't stop someone because they're black. But you can stop them if they're black, have robbed somebody, or you have reasonable suspicion to believe that they will. Or if someone calls in and says that a black, white, Asian, yellow, blue person robbed them, you can use all of that description, as well as gender, as well as all of the protected categories, to call in and say this is the type of person that robbed me, and that is the radio call that should be made. That's pushing out there saying that will shackle the police, and I've issued a challenge that still exists, and it says this: if the police union, if the mayor, or anyone can point out in the bills where it would prevent them from using these descriptions, I will pull the bill before the vote this evening. And if they can't, they should pull their ads and apologize to the people of the city of New York. They haven't called me up on my offer.
Well, Councilman, we know you're front and center on this issue, but how will you be able to get, let's just say you get your Inspector General. How does that Inspector General get inside the head of a New York City police officer and can document whether a stop was done on race?
Well, the Inspector General is not just about stops. So the Inspector General is about being able to provide oversight and policy and pattern and practice recommendations for the entirety of the police department. I know people are focused a lot on the stop, question, and frisk, and it's the most palpable issue, but it's not the only issue. We have issues of quotas. We have issues of Muslim surveillance. We have issues with the LGBT community. So there are a lot of issues that we believe the Inspector General will be able to review, provide recommendations, and I might add, those recommendations can be accepted or rejected by the mayor or the commissioner. And when it comes to profiling, which is why I believe that this has to be passed, because while it gets to the heart of the issue with stop, question, and frisk, that issue is bias-based profiling. It's not the stops themselves. So all of us want the police to continue to be able to stop people with reasonable suspicion. The only thing that we want to stop is profiling people, whether it's stop, question, and frisk, whether it's any other police policy that's profiling people just for the sake of profiling, that is not serving a common good. We want that to stop. And so we've narrowly tailored this bill. We've even accepted ideas from the Police Benevolent Association, the PBA, to make this bill better. And we are sorry that the chair of the Public Safety refused to have a hearing on the two new bills, because we believe the public would have heard the things that we've taken out, like monetary damages, the changes we made to make sure that we are not impairing or impeding our police officers. But they weren't able to hear that because the chairperson blocked it from coming to the committee, so that's why we had to discharge it and go directly to a vote. But what it did was allow that space that was created to be filled by lies and kind of just absurd, nonsensical things that the mayor and the police unions are now saying. I believe he's saying that not because these bills will hamper, but because he believes that his legacy may somehow be tarnished. And I would posit the opposite. I think it's a great leader to say we tried some things. Many of them worked. A lot of them have, which I believe, but some of them didn't. And we have to correct those that didn't.
Councilman, we're out of time here, but a very quick question, and you alluded to this just a second ago. It may be a bit inside baseball to some, but if an Inspector General for the NYPD is such a good thing, why did you bypass the chair of the council committee on this, Peter Vallone Jr., who refused to bring these bills for a vote? Why did you bypass him? And quick response on that, please.
So, one, just to remind people that the Inspector General actually is in all the 300 agencies, including the CIA and FBI, have one. But we had to do it because he refused to have a hearing on the two new bills that we had that had all of the things that we accepted as changes to the bills. He just wouldn't do it. He refused to have a hearing. And if someone refuses to have a hearing, there are things within the City Council rules that say if you get enough people to say that we should have this on the floor of a vote, it's 7 people to bring it to discharge and 26 council members to say it should come to a vote. We had 41 vote for it to say that it should come to the floor for a vote.
Councilman Jumaane Williams, thank you for joining us live from Lower Manhattan. Richard, you know, I know you have done many of these interviews on this topic, but what I just found interesting in what the councilman said, we understand that he's advocating for his positions. But when we asked about if he had enough votes to override a veto from Bloomberg, that didn't exactly sound like a vote of confidence.
And do the math again. It's 34, right?
Yes.
34 out of the 51 seats here. You know, Obi, I know that you got reservations about this,
Sure.
and I'll let you two guys go at it. You've read both about the language of the bills. He claims that there's posturing on the mayor's part. Where do you fall?
Well, I think he says to point to something that says you can't operate the way they want to operate for stop and frisk right now, I think is the way he sort of put the question. I think his definition right now, his first definition of racial or ethnic bias really cuts it off right there and takes the power out of the police department from achieving what they want to do and makes it a tort lawyer's dream at this point, because it opens the door for the New York City Police Department to be sued very easily. They've claimed that they can be sued personally now because of what's out there. And what I'm
You heard him
fearful
already
of,
say that the monetary damages are on the table.
well, but then you've got career issues and other things and suspensions. I mean, different things you're talking about. What I'm concerned about, though, too, is does the NYPD that has been using taxpayer dollars to train them and work their way up the ranks, do they decide that the officers want to leave and go to Westchester and Long Island, and we're going to lose the best brain talent
or
we
you can
have
just
for
train
these
them
things?
not to use race as the primary factor when stopping somebody, and as the law says, that should not be the determining factor. It should be suspected unlawful
But
activity.
the definition, and what this does right here, is opens the door for lawyers to have a field day.
I'm
And that's
reading
the way I
I'm
read
reading
this.
the same
But
paragraph
that's
that you
the
are.
beauty of law, though. The beauty of law is you can sue anybody, as you've said on the show before, for anything. And I think this ends up giving the lawyers an open door to do whatever they want.
The big point is, what attorney is going to take the case if there's no money at the end of the day and it's a frivolous suit?
Because the deep pockets of the city. You can still sue the city at that point and tie up the police officers in court.
See, I've always said, Dom, this is, yes, it's black and white when you look at the numbers, but this is about zip codes. You know, if you go to a neighborhood that's 90% minority, 90% of the stops there are people of color, even though 90% of them aren't charged with a single thing afterwards, that's your problem, right? I mean, if it's not the same way across all 5 boroughs in all neighborhoods, you're going to have this problem over and over again. I bet you deep down, you were there for the trial. Don't you think some of the cops almost wish this program, they like parts of it, but there's a lot of parts they don't like being the bad guys for.
I know for a fact, Richard, that they don't like it because they're pushed to get numbers, to come up with statistics that are unreasonable. 20 stop and frisk, 20 arrests, and 20, I believe it's 20 summonses per month. That may be great for Serpico and some other cops, but for the entire force, it's a no-go. And I know we got to toss to a break, but you mentioned zip codes. 10465. That's where I lived at in the Throgs Neck Projects in the Bronx. And you better believe it's a different set of policing there than it is on Park Avenue.
80% of the stop and frisk are coming from 50% of the population, what they're saying. What's happening is in those neighborhoods is where they're doing stop and frisk. If they've got to balance out those numbers and get it down to 50%, they're going to have to grab people at 42nd and 5th Avenue.
I got to hit a break here. I got to hit a break, but the one thing is, tonight's, there are going to be 2 big votes. We're going to talk about it tomorrow. Stop and frisk. It is before a vote. Now, when we come back, we are going to head from, well, a debate outside of a courthouse in Lower Manhattan to a courtroom in Sanford, Florida. That's where there was some really potentially game-changing testimony today. We'll tell you what happened in the Trayvon Martin case. Really, some testimony that could change the way this trial is going to go down. We're going to be right back with that after this.